If you're looking to up your barbecue game, why not try your hand at making your own sourdough hot dog buns? Yes, the store-bought ones are convenient, but they're usually lacking in flavor. Not so with these tangy, fermented sourdough hot dog buns. Plus, they're made with just a few simple ingredients and no commercial yeast. Here's what you'll need. 1 cup or 220 grams of sourdough starter. This recipe works best with an active, also known as a mature or ripe sourdough starter. I'll discuss that more in a bit. 3.5 cups or 465 grams of all-purpose flour. I like to use all-purpose flour instead of adding bread flour, but feel free to experiment with different types of flour. I have not personally tried it, but you could probably safely substitute half whole wheat flour. 3/4 cup of whole milk. For a rich dough, use milk as the liquid. 1/4 cup of butter. To make it even richer, you'll be adding some butter. I use salted butter, so you'll want to increase the salt a bit if you're using unsalted butter. I'm sure you could substitute coconut, avocado, or olive oil, but of course the flavor will be different. 1 large egg plus 1 yolk. The final way that you're going to enrich the dough is by using eggs. Make sure to save the white for later. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I use unrefined sea salt, so you might want to decrease the amount of salt a bit if you're using table salt. 1/4 cup of honey. I like to add a little bit of sweetness to my hot dog buns, and honey is perfect. And of course, you can substitute a sweetener of your choice if you prefer. Now, this recipe uses an active sourdough starter, which is one that has been fed 4 to 12 hours previously, has doubled in volume, is active and bubbly, and passes the float test. Basically, you want to use your starter when it has just doubled in volume, or a little bit after, a little bit before, but you want it in that time frame. By the way, I keep my starter at 100% hydration, which means I feed it equal weights, not volumes of flour and water. If you keep your starter at a different hydration percentage, make sure to feed it 100% hydration for this recipe. Otherwise, your results will probably be a little different. Probably not gonna ruin the sourdough hot dog buns, but this video is brought to you by my cookbook, Favorite Sourdough Recipes. It's available in ebook format, and it features 20 of my favorite sourdough recipes that I've developed over the past 5 years, including sourdough sandwich bread, English muffins, brioche, donuts, dinner rolls, pizza crust, tortillas, and more. Besides the recipes, this handy ebook includes a recipe for making a sourdough starter from scratch, as well as sourdough troubleshooting tips. Once you purchase the cookbook, you'll immediately receive a PDF file that you can download and view on your device and get to sourdough baking. Now back to these sourdough hot dog buns. To make the dough, start by melting the butter over the stove in a small saucepan. After the butter is melted, pour the milk on top to warm it up. Pour the butter-milk mixture into the bowl of a stand mixer. After the mixture has cooled, pour the sourdough starter on top. I like to weigh the sourdough starter because it saves a measuring cup having to be washed. And sourdough is very sticky and it's not easy to clean off stuff. Place the remaining ingredients on top of the milk butter starter mixture. Make sure to save the egg white from the extra yolk. You'll be using it for the egg wash later. Now place the stand mixer bowl onto the base and fit it with the dough hook attachment. Knead on medium-low, which is a 2 on my machine, for 10 to 15 minutes. The dough will start out quite shaggy, but when it's fully kneaded, it will be smoother and stick together more. Place the dough in a greased container and cover. I like to use a lidded container, but you could also just use a bowl covered with a damp tea towel or plastic wrap. Allow to ferment for 4 to 12 hours. Your kitchen temperature and therefore the dough temperature will greatly affect rise times. This is why I have such a big range for the time it will take to ferment. You want to go off visual cues, not just a time. It's not like 8 hours and it will be done. You can either ferment the dough until it has doubled in volume, or you can perform the poke test. To perform the poke test, gently poke your finger into the risen dough. If it slowly springs back and doesn't quite fill in, it's done fermenting. But if it springs back really quickly and completely fills in, it's not done proofing yet. And if it doesn't spring back at all, it's most likely overproofed and you need to move on to the next step as soon as possible. Grease a sheet pan. Now, if you want really uniform hot dog buns, start by weighing all of your dough. Mine was around 1,033 grams total. Now divide that weight by the number of hot dog buns you want to make. You can do 9 to 12 buns. Obviously, if you do 9, the final buns will be larger. For 12 hot dog buns, it came out to about 86 grams per bun. To form the buns, start by pulling the corners of one of the dough pieces toward the center to start shaping a ball. Place the piece of dough seam side down and cup your hands around the piece of dough and roll it along the counter to create surface tension. Allow the balls of dough to rest on the counter for 10 to 15 minutes. You can skip the pre-shaping step if you like. This is something I learned from a Claire Saffitz video, and it does create more uniform hot dog buns, but it's not strictly necessary. Clean your work surface and lightly grease it with butter or oil. After the dough has rested, flatten a dough ball into a rectangle that's about 5 inches long. Grab the top, long edge, and pull it towards the middle. Use the side of your hand to secure the edge to the middle. Repeat steps 6 and 7 with the bottom edge. Tuck the ends in and seal. Grab the edges and pull them towards the middle, pinching to seal. Flip the dough over and push the sides under with your hands, creating more surface tension. If at any time the dough starts to stick to the counter too much, you can add a little more butter or oil. Arrange the shaped buns close together but not touching on the greased baking sheet. I did 2 rows of 6. Now, if you want larger hot dog buns, you can divide the dough into 9 pieces and place the formed buns in a greased 9 by 13 inch baking pan. Shape the dough in the same way you did for the smaller buns. And then place in the prepared pan. I did 7 next to each other along the bottom and 2 on top. Cover the buns with a clean kitchen towel and allow to rise in a warm spot until doubled. About half an hour before the buns are done rising, preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 191 Celsius. Whisk the egg white that you saved from the dough with 1 teaspoon of water. Brush that all over the tops of the risen buns. Bake the buns in the preheated oven for 20 to 25 minutes or until they're deep golden brown and reach an internal temperature of 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 93 degrees Celsius. Immediately remove the buns to a wire cooling rack and cool until at least warm before slicing. Here's what the smaller buns look like when they're done. And here are the larger hot dog buns. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can slice a homemade hot dog bun. You can go the traditional route and simply slice the hot dog bun in half horizontally, or you can slice the bun down the middle or vertically. This is another thing I learned from Claire Saffitz. I don't know that I'd ever seen somebody slice a hot dog bun straight down like that before. If you're planning on eating your homemade hot dog buns a day or 2 after baking them, it's safe to store them in an airtight container at room temperature. You can store them for a week or so in an airtight container in the refrigerator, but they will tend to dry out. For longer term storage, you can wrap them well and store in the freezer. They should last for a month or 2. By the way, if you have leftover buns, you can use them to make French toast casserole. Now that you know how to make these scrumptious sourdough hot dog buns, your next cookout will be even more tasty. Alright, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to check out this video next that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Not so with these tangy. I'll have my sourdough about half an hour before the 191. About half an hour before the